Do you expect there will be a vote then on a standalone Republican plan before this week is over?
What we have been working on for some time is how can we lower the cost of healthcare and how can we lower premiums for all Americans. That's 347 million Americans. When people talk about the premium tax credit subsidies, that is 7% of the entire population. But every American's facing high cost of healthcare. And what we are doing today in the Rules Committee and tomorrow on the floor are just different examples of healthcare policies and changes that we can do that will lower the cost and lower the premiums for all Americans, whether it's PBM reforms, creating more transparency, or whether it is codifying choice accounts to allow small businesses to give their employees give their employees money so they can purchase their own healthcare option at tax-free.
I know that, of course, the bills that hit the floor are the purview of the majority, and when it comes down to it, the speaker. But we've seen some swing district Republicans bristle at this idea of not allowing a vote on the Obamacare extension amendment. Mike Lawler, your colleague from New York, called it idiotic, Mr. Chairman. Why not just allow both and see where the chips fall?
I'll just say that we all have different opinions, but what the Democrats have been pushing, in fact, there was a vote last Thursday in the United States Senate that failed 51-48, I believe is what it was, on a 3-year current extension. The waste, fraud, and abuse within the Obamacare exchanges just in the last 2 weeks was highlighted by the GAO report that said 59,000 dead people were being subsidized. One Social Security number had 127 different policies attached to it. And the GAO also attempted with fake identities and fake Social Security numbers to enroll in the program, and 100% of them were accepted and 90% were still being subsidized a year later this year. These reforms have to be addressed. You cannot just extend it. And the worst statistic that people should be paying attention to, of the 24 million people on the exchanges, last year alone, nearly 12 million never even filed a medical claim. You cannot tell me that they didn't have a medical claim. They simply were automatically enrolled and didn't even know they have it. But guess what? Those insurance companies, they were still subsidized.
Of course, and I hear you, Congressman, and we've heard a lot of your Republican colleagues make these arguments. But what do you say when somebody calls from Missouri and you've got a constituent on the line and they say, how can you help me out? My premiums are going to double next month.
That's exactly the case. Is the person who would be calling me from Missouri would be someone on employer-sponsored health care. And everything the Democrats is talking about has nothing to do with lowering the cost of premiums for people who are on employee-sponsored health care. And that's 164 million Americans. All that they're talking about is the 24 million people on exchanges. We need to lower the cost of health care for every single American, not just the people on ACA.
Are you not hearing from people on Obamacare, Mr. Chairman, or am I misunderstanding you?
Look at my congressional district. We have roughly 800,000 people in it. We have less than 5% that are on Obamacare. And we're the 9th poorest congressional district out of 435. So it is a very, very small population. In fact, even the people on the exchanges, 99.7% of the people in my congressional district that are on the exchanges will have generous subsidies to help them with their payments.
We just got word from the president, Mr. Chairman, and this is just breaking. I'll share it with you as I read it from Truth Social. I will be giving an address to the nation tomorrow night, live from the White House, 9 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to seeing you then. It's been a great year for our country, and the best is yet to come. So we've got a presidential address. Primetime address tomorrow night. It's been a while. Chairman Smith, do you suspect that he'll provide some guidance when it comes to health care reform?
I'm thankful that we have a president who, in fact, communicates with the general public on a nonstop basis. Having an address tomorrow is just another example for the president to talk and speak to the American public directly of the accomplishments that's been happening over the last 11 months of his presidency. And will he be announcing other new initiatives and new ideas, it wouldn't surprise me because this man's working all the time.
I know that there was another meeting this morning. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you were in this briefing with the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs about the president's policy, his strategy in the Caribbean. We understand from the Secretary of Defense that the footage of the double tap strike will never made public. Do you agree that that's a smart move? And have you received enough information to make a judgment here?
I have not been part of any of those briefings. We've been today, the last couple days, focused on the healthcare legislation that's moving off the House floor and working with that and meeting with members and colleagues to make sure that the votes are there. But I haven't been a part of any of those briefings or those discussions.
Understood. Do you then, because of your focus on the healthcare legislation, have a sense of when we will see a vote this week?
I think you'll see a vote tomorrow. On the healthcare items that we suggested today at 2 o'clock. Right after this, in fact, I will be presenting before the House Rules Committee, and that is the first step before it goes to the floor.
The House of Representatives, I was reading, will set a non-COVID record for fewest roll call votes on record in this session. Of course, that was exacerbated by the longest government shutdown in history. I just wonder if Speaker Johnson deserves some criticism for this, and if you expect a more productive year ahead.
You know, President Trump shows us that we can always do more and work harder. If you look at just the Ways and Means Committee, which I'm chairman of and that we've been pushing through, this year we've passed 123 different pieces of legislation out of our committee. That beats the numbers of any prior Congress by far in recent history. So we've been working hard. We did deliver on the largest tax cut in U.S. history, the largest investment in border security in U.S. history, the most significant welfare reforms in U.S. history, all within the big, beautiful bill, which affected 103 different tax chapters.
Well, you know, we keep hearing very quietly, and I'm sure that you're reading and hearing the same stuff that I am, that if the discord continues in the House, Congressman, that we could have a funding problem again at the end of January. As chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, point us forward here. What's going to happen when we creep up on that deadline? I know that we won't have a full-blown budget with regular order, but will there be a plan to avert another shutdown?
I'll tell you, it's been very difficult cooperating with the Democrats. We've had bipartisan markups within our committee, and you're talking about bipartisan pieces of legislation. For example, we had 9 bills last week that it took 10 hours for 9 bipartisan bills. And if you counted up the votes, it was 347 yes votes and 19 no votes over 19 bills. So super bipartisan, but the obstruction has been real and the delay has been real. And so the negotiations within the government funding is a huge issue. And I hope that the Democrats have learned from their lesson that they're not going to shut down government like what they did last time. They shut down government last time and they were very clear. They wanted to spend $1.5 trillion in new money, including providing health care for illegals.